Next to me is one of the students. He's a former student from the school, and I was talking earlier today with him, and he was telling me his reaction about what was taking place. James, thanks very much for staying here with me, and tell me about where were you yesterday when things happened?
I was at my house yesterday. I live right around the corner from the school on the street next to the highway because the school's next to the highway. And the only thing I saw yesterday was just cops for like an hour and 30 minutes straight. Then after that, they were still going. I saw over 200 cops, ambulances and firefighters, everything.
What was it like for you to see that? Did you hear anything coming out of the school?
Well, we're such a close town here that, if you're following the right amount of people, you're going to find out everything. So I got the news right, unfortunately, when, the shooter was in the school shooting. I got the news saying that there's an active shooter alert around my area. I live the neighborhood behind the school. So, you never know what could happen. I was scared. I called my family. I told them I love you because I don't know what could happen next. I told them what was happening. You don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know if he was going to come out of the school, go to the neighborhoods. You never know what could happen.
When you say you don't know or we don't know what's going to happen next, but what do you think is next about this event? There must be a big lesson here for everyone in this community.
I think the big lesson here is to, grab a family member, grab a loved one, grab somebody that needs the love and tell them I love you. It's really hard, nowadays, these kids don't get enough affection from their parents. They might be busy, they might be working, doing their hobbies. You got to get close to your kids and your parents if you're a kid, a loved one, because tomorrow is not given. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So you just need to grab a family member, hug them, tell them I love you, and I'll see you later, I'll talk to you later. Do something to confirm that I want you alive.
A separate student that I spoke with, he said that he heard a lot of loud commotion and he was surprised because he was listening to music at the time. Listen to his account right here.
Oh, so I just heard gunshots going off. I had my AirPods on full blast. I was blasting Ken Carson and I heard gunshots go off and I was like, oh crap. My friend pushed me to the ground. I thought it was fake until I heard more gunshots and screaming. I was like, oh, and then yeah, they pushed me out to the side and they came in there told us to get our hands up. So we got out and we were walking out and then we walked past and there was a room and then there was a body and there was the gun laying on the ground with the bullets and the blood.
14-year-old Bree Jones was the first student to lay eyes on Colt Gray, just moments before she says he began his deadly rampage.
He knocked on the door. I went up, I saw him holding a bag and just pulling the gun out. I'm not sure what kind of bag was it, but I seen him pulling it out of a bag and the gun was so big.
Gray was her classmate, and their class, the first he tried to enter, she tells CNN.
I always look out the door before I open it. That's just it's a habit my mom taught me.
But as her teacher instructed her to let him back in, she said,
no, he has a gun. If I would have opened the door, then he would have got every single one of us in that class. And I don't want me, my teacher, my friends in the class, and my other classmates, I don't want none of us to get hurt. So I just didn't go. I thank God that I did not open that door.
Jones said Gray moved on to her sister's class down the hall.
Colt shot my teacher multiple times.
Malaysia Mitchell says she'll never be able to erase the image of her teacher, Richard Aspinwall, begging for help.
We had to drag our teacher's body fully into the classroom. We heard him take his last breath.
Mitchell says she felt powerless.
I've been trained what to do, give CPR and other stuff, but I couldn't because I couldn't help him. So I ended up having a seizure.
Do you think you'll be able to come back to school?
Yes, because I'm not going to walk in fear.
Lots of questions this morning about whether the suspect's mother called the school with an ominous warning the morning of the shooting. This as we're also learning that the suspect allegedly shot 13 people in just over a minute.
You don't think the kid that sits next to you in class is just gonna shoot up your school one day?
16-year-olds about what happened inside that school early this morning, as you were just detailing there. We have with us Alexandria Romero. She's a sophomore, and you said you actually heard the gunshots. You were in second period at the time. Tell me what happened.
I was in the hall next to it. So I heard it, but it was very like vaguely, you know. So the teachers came in and they were like, everybody get on the floor, cover yourselves. Like we were all like hugging each other. So we were all like, it was a small little ball of us like all holding each other. And I remember like my friends crying. They were all scared. And then 2 police officers came in with their guns. Telling us not to move, that it's still not safe. And we were in that classroom for like 10 minutes before they even let us like go out. When the time was finally up, we went to the hallway that it happened in, and that's when I saw like my math teacher, and he was all covered. I saw blood everywhere. It was
and
sad.
you've shared videos with us showing the hallway where you guys were walking as you were evacuating. Describe, our viewers can't see the video right now, but describe to us what you just showed us in those videos.
It was basically my math teacher, just a white cover was on top of him, but in the video, like y'all about to see, it's like a blood there, but it was really quick. Like everybody was in a rush trying to get out.
And of course, in that video, you can see police officers standing around someone on the floor. At this point, we don't know whether anyone passed away in this incident. We do know there were injuries. People are being treated for injuries. You talked about your friends who were crying during this period. What about you? How were you feeling? Was there confusion? Was there anxiety? Was there fear?
I was scared. I had so much fear. Like I'm still shaking. Like I was so scared. I didn't know. My like feelings were so heightened. I cried too. I was scared.
We've talked to other students who said at the beginning, you know, they thought it might have been either a drill or just some commotion that was going on. Talk to me about how you...
Our school usually does drills, and they take it pretty serious. So, of course, my class thought that it wasn't really a big of a deal until we saw this red flash go off in our classroom, and the announcements went off saying that this is not a drill and this is real. And, yeah, people thought it was a joke at first. But because we take our drills pretty serious, but our teacher was telling us we weren't gonna have one today, so it was really like out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm. And of course, the scene is still active. We have law enforcement here still processing the scene at this point. We don't know a lot of details about the victims at this point, but just, you know, can you see yourself going back in that building?
I'm definitely scared to go back. I talked with my parents and stuff. I don't feel safe going back there for a while. I definitely will feel like scared going back to that school, just knowing like what I saw coming out of that school too. It's like it's hard to get out of my head. Like seeing that body right there, and especially like our math teacher, it was hard.
I know you keep saying your math teacher. At this point, we don't know any identities of any of the casualties at this point. How do you know it was a math teacher?
Because my friend was in that class when he had math period, and she was telling me that when he opened the door to see what was going on, because he was trying to make sure if it was a drill or not, he opened the door, and right when he opened the door and peeked out, they shot him.
So you're saying this was happening in the hallway, your friend was in a classroom, the teacher in that classroom tried to go outside to see what was going on, and that teacher was shot?
She said like as soon as he opened the door, he got shot.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I am sorry for the traumatic experience you guys have had to deal with this morning, and of course having to heal from for weeks and weeks, maybe years from now, and I'm glad you guys are okay. Thank you so much for speaking with us.
Of course.
We talked with one young lady by the name of Zoe Gray, who described what she went through in her classroom. Was there ever any moment when you thought you were in danger?
Oh yeah, I thought I was gonna die. It was like, it sounded so close. I'm sure it was, because it was right near. I don't know exactly which door, but you hear bang, bang, like they're kind of like they're trying to get in a door. It wasn't our door, but I'm sitting right by the door, and so it sounds like they're trying to get in, but I don't know if it's shots or they're just trying to get in. We were just having a normal day. It wasn't anything different than what we were used to. They usually make you put up your phone, but I was charging mine today, so I luckily had it, and it was just normal. And then bang, 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 hard lockdown. And the teachers were phenomenal. Like we have a special teacher for the blind kid, and then we have our normal teacher, and they were very good at doing their job of keeping us calm.
Miguel Perici Orta joins me now alongside his mom, Carolina. Miguel is a sophomore at Appalachia High School. Miguel, thank you for being with us after this very difficult day. Tell us what you experienced today.
It was early in the morning and I had just finished the quiz and I heard a loud banging outside the door and I thought it was a locker, so I didn't think too much of it. And then, so my teacher went over to the door to check out what happened, and then we heard repeatedly over and over again. And then that's how we knew it was a gunshot. And that's when the hard lockdown was placed. I ran to the back of the classroom and hid under a lab table for about half an hour. And I was just thinking about how it's possible that I might die today. And it was just a sad thought to me.
Miguel, had you ever thought anything like this might ever happen at school?
No, I always hear about it happening, but it's one of those things that you don't relate to it until it happens. So it was just shocking that it happened here.
When you were hiding under the lab table, did you have your phone? Were you able to get in touch with your mom?
No, I had my phone in a phone pocket and I didn't have time to get it before. So for about half an hour, I was just trying not to make any noise, trying to listen to the noises outside because you could sort of hear what was happening out there. And I was just worried about not being able to like talk to my mom again.
Tell me what you said when you saw your mom.
When I saw my mom, it was after we went outside and I had called her. And when she answered, I started just breaking down. I'm like, Mom, I'm okay, but there was a shooter here. And then she jumped from here all the way to the school. She got here really fast. And I gave her the longest hug I've ever given.
Miguel, tell me when you were under the table, there were other students in the class, right? Were you able, I mean, tell me about that half an hour. It must have seemed like days.
Yeah, it felt like it was an ending. I heard people crying quietly, people like whispering, but then the teacher told them to like be quiet because there was an active shooter right down the hall. And what I decided to do was just pray. I prayed for my mom. I prayed for my dad, my sister, my family.
Miguel Perici Orta, thank you for being with us. And God bless you and your mom, Carolina.
Thank you.
Jillian Peterson joins me now. She is the executive director of the Violence Prevention Project Research Center. It's good to be with you again, even on these awful circumstances, because you've helped us understand this before, these numbers, this pattern in our country. So let me start here. The shooter is 14, we've been told. Based on your research, how does that fit into the work you've done compiling an understanding of the kinds of shooters that are in these school shootings?
It's fairly consistent. So the vast majority, nearly 90% of perpetrators of mass shootings in schools are students of that school. 14 is on the young end. Most perpetrators tend to be between 15 and 18, but there have been perpetrators as young as 11.
And what questions would you be interested in having the answers to, or what questions are you asking in this moment where we don't know much and where we all really don't want to speculate in some, what would you be seeking to find out, though, in order to help to use this instance to understand this chronic problem in America?
Yeah, what we see amongst school mass shooters is this common pathway to violence. It often involves a student who's in a significant crisis, and it's a crisis that people around them are noticing. They're oftentimes, we call it leakage, but they're leaking their plans. They're telling other people, oftentimes classmates. Sometimes they're getting radicalized online or posting things on social media. There's typically a large number of warning signs leading up to these horrific events. So I think in this case, we'll be looking for what were the warning signs, what was missed, how do we do better in the future to not miss those signs.
And that leakage, as you called it, is the result of what? I mean, you've done the work to explain what's happening in people in crisis that end up in this state. Help us understand what that crisis looks like.
Our research shows that leakage is often kind of a last cry for help. It's this screaming out into the void and saying, I'm planning on doing this. Perpetrators who do this are typically very isolated. They're actively suicidal. These are designed to be final acts. And we've interviewed perpetrators of these shootings, and they say they're looking to be seen and to be known. Even if it's for something horrific, they want their name in the headlines. And so if you can give that person some hope, take away the suicidality, intervene in the crisis, there's hope that you can sort of get them out of that moment.
And so very quickly, Jillian, at the end here, as I recall from our previous conversations, the message is if you see a kid who's, alone, lonely, outside, in crisis, see them, show them they are seen.
Yes, reach out, connect. It's amazing what a human connection can do for someone.
Joined now by Cameron Leroy, a sophomore at Appalachia High School. Cameron, thank you so much for taking the time to join us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
I know you were actually in a classroom close to the hallway where the shooting happened. You were taught by one of the teachers who was killed. How are you doing this morning? What have the last 24 hours been like?
Honestly, when it first had happened and I was safe at home after the whole situation occurred, I was still in a state of shock. So it didn't really settle in and hit me until later last night. I noticed that the people that were killed and the people that were wounded, I could possibly never see again, especially my geometry teacher, Mr. Aspinwall. He's a really nice person, and may he rest in peace.
What else should we know about Mr. Aspinwall?
He was a football coach. He had 2 kids and a wife, and his wife was pregnant. And it's just really sad to see him go. And he was taken from us way too early.
Did you know any of the 2 students, Christian and Mason, at all?
I do not know any of them, but my prayers go out to their families.
Absolutely. I know you heard those gunshots. When you heard them, what went through your mind at first? Did you know what was happening, or did you think it was possibly some other noise?
Some other noise, honestly, but then when it wouldn't stop, I started getting concerned. And when my teacher looked out the window towards getting in the corner, I kind of knew that it was the shooting. So from there, I was just praying to God to keep me safe and all my friends. I was just praying that I made it out of there alive. And I know that some people did not.
In that moment, what did you and the other students do inside that classroom? What did your teacher do in response?
So my teacher, he told us to get in the corner and get down and stay quiet. And then he locked the doors, turned the lights off, and put the big black board. It's like a smart board that you it's a touch screen. He put that in front of the board because it's the heaviest thing in the classroom. Just as an extra layer of protection, because we don't have a closet of some sort in that room. So that's really what we did. And then we stayed quiet. And we were in that room for 30 minutes until they evacuated us. And we continued to hear screaming from the police. And really just it was this very haunting moment for everyone.
What was the moment like when you were finally able to reunite with your family?
Honestly, I was just glad that I wasn't one of the 4 killed, and I'm glad I wasn't one of the 9 wounded. And I'm sure my mom was really happy to know that I was safe and I was okay.
No doubt she was relieved to see that you were okay. The suspect, the young gunman, only 14 years old. Do you know him at all? Do you know anything about him?
I do not know anything about him or who he is. I've never heard of him from the school, at the school. All I'm saying is that what he did was the same.
You know, my generation, we grew up with fire drills. Your generation has grown up with active shooter drills in school. When you went through that training, did you ever actually think that you would have to put it to use in real life?
Never. No, never, ever. And then when it happened, we were prepared, but it's just nothing you're going to expect from a normal day of school. You think you're going to go to school for 7 hours, learn, come home to your family. Some people didn't even make it out of that school, and it's just really sad.
I was scared I was going to die, to be honest. I was just scared out of my mind. I was like, what is happening? Then I hear the gunshots, and then everyone ducks behind the desk, and the teacher is flipping tables and stuff and barricading the door. When I heard hard lockdown, I knew it wasn't a drill. I immediately texted my dad, and I was just like, I don't know if this is a drill. I'm really scared. And I just kept my feet up and I prayed.
Parents who were alerted to the shooting raced to the school, many abandoning their cars on the side of the road and running to campus.
They're telling us to run because they didn't get all the shooters. They didn't get all the shooters.
It's unreal and it's unbelievable. And I'm so sorry to the, families that this affected.
I said, son, please tell me you're joking. He said, no, Mom, I'm not joking. He said, they're shooting in the school and the shooter is right across the hall from me.
Let me introduce you to Lila, who's 16 years old. She was actually in algebra class just this morning, elbow to elbow with that shooter, Colt Gray, as he's been named by the Georgia Bureau of Investigations. Let me first start with, how are you? How are you coping?
I'm okay. I'm pushing through it, talking to friends, making sure, everyone else is okay, checking on people around me.
Can you bring me back? What happened?
I just remember, the moment that it happened, he was at the door, and I knew they were looking for him already, but he was at the door, and they almost let him in until they backed up, and then he turned away, and that's when you hear the first rounds of fire.
So he was in class with you, in algebra class, he left. Then he came back, was at the door, and then knocking to be let back in. Why? You told me something about the doors.
Yeah, they lock automatically, so you have to be let in to come back into our classroom. So I think he wanted to come to us first.
Come to you first to shoot?
Yes, to shoot us class.
And then he was at the door, student went to open the door, and then what happened?
She backed away. I think she saw him, or maybe somebody said something, but I'm pretty sure she saw that he had a gun, and so she backed away.
So she was about to let him into the class, you think, to shoot the students, saw that he had a gun, did not let him in. What happened next?
He turns to the classroom to what would have been my right, and he just starts to shoot, and you hear about 10 to 15 rounds back to back.
What did you hear? What did you think was going on in those moments?
As soon as they didn't let him in, you kind of I don't know, I already kind of had a feeling it was gonna happen and it was him, but as soon as they didn't let him in and you hear the gunshots, you kind of know.
You knew that something very bad was happening next door. Did he ever say anything?
No, he never really talked. He was pretty quiet. He wasn't there most times. Either he just didn't come to school or he just would skip class. But even when he would have talked, it was one-word answers or just short statements.
You told me off camera you weren't surprised that he would be the shooter. Why is that?
Just because when you think of shooters and how they act or things that they do, it's usually the quiet kid, or that's a stereotype for it to be, and he was the one that fit that description in our class.
Did you ever see the gun, or the student that go to the door see the gun, describe it to you guys?
No, I haven't talked with her after this. It was all pretty hectic, but I didn't see the gun.
Did he ever have a hobby of guns, hunting? Did he ever talk about any of that?
No, he never really talked.
Can you tell me what it was like inside of the classroom when you hear those gunshots go off? How I heard that you helped to keep the other students calm, right?
Yeah, most of when we heard it, most people just dropped to the floor and kind of crawled in an area, piled on top of each other, lost a shoe when they were trying to get to a corner. The teacher turned off the lights, but we all just kind of piled together. And I pushed desks in front of us. I was just telling people oh, push desks in front of you, block in front of you, get low, things like that.
And are there any metal detectors in the school?
No, not that I know of.
Did you guys drill for active shooters? We know that some school districts do that.
They were silent drills, so we stayed in our seats. The teachers kept teaching through them. I think it was more for the system of it instead of preparing us.
How quickly, from the moment that you heard the gunshots go off to the hard lockdown alert going on the screens, letting everyone else in the school know that something had gone wrong, how long did that take? Do you recall?
Maybe a couple minutes, but it wasn't instant.
At what point did you know that this was over?
When the cops came in the room and asked us to put our hands up, asked us if we had anything. A little bit after that, they let us all out. But when it was kind of quiet, you hear cops yelling, but it's kind of quiet. There's no more gunshots, things like that.
Yeah. What was that communication like with your parents? I mean, all of us have phones nowadays. I spoke with many students texting what they thought might be their last words to their parents. What was that like for you?
I called my mom. I called her and I was like, oh, they're shooting up the school. She thought it was she didn't believe me at first, and I was like, no, they actually are. And I talked to her for a second, and she was like, oh, I'm on my way right now. And then I was like, okay, I gotta go call other people. I text all my friends in the school, out of school, everywhere. And I'm just texting and calling kind of everybody.
And what was that like leaving the school? I saw videos of officers escorting the students with their hands raised. What was that like for you?
It was protocol, obviously, but I was glad it was over. Like, I was glad we were able to leave. I was looking for my friends that were there. I was comforting the ones that had been through a little bit of a harder time.
And then, Lila, what would you say to this student that you were just elbow to elbow with just this morning in algebra class, and now this?
I'm not sure. I want to know why he did it. I think that would be I want to know why.
Lila, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, and the best to you and your family and your community. Thank you for talking to us. Jake?